Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patty Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bankstead. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Hello, everyone. This is Kirk Bankstead with the Up North podcast. We are welcoming lots of folks, but we got Patty Vasquez also running a radio show here with no audio.
She's doing great. You're doing great.
Great.
Keep up the good work. We can't hear a thing you're saying.
Well, Patty's figuring that out. I want to introduce everybody for the show today. We've got a great show. We got Ben Cominos from WHBY, which stands for Why Hot Boys Yodel.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Excellent.
I could never remember the tagline for his station in Appleton. And
now you can.
Now I'll never forget it. Why Hot Boys Yodel. And we got Patty Vasquez from WCPT 820 AM in Chicago. And then subbing today is our producer, who's Chris Larson. I think Senator Chris Larson, somehow the snow or the cold broke down his car. And so he's in a bus going back to Milwaukee from Madison on the way home. And he didn't think that would be too amenable to being on the radio today. So Amy is going to take over for Chris. Amy's usually behind the scenes, but tonight she's right here with us. So the show tonight is going to be, all these people that we were. So Jerry, the producer of Patty's show, and I and Amy were all in Chicago this weekend. We met with a ton of activists, a lot of people who are on Substack just like we are, and so many of them have gone to Minneapolis because that is the epicenter of this new escalation of ICE brutality. Yes, they've been in Chicago. Yes, they've been in LA, but they haven't been shooting and maiming, and just making life miserable for American citizens like they are in Minnesota. So this first segment, we're going to talk about what we can be doing and what states should be doing to slow down ICE. We're going to talk about what Wisconsin's doing and what we should be doing at the federal level in the second segment. Then we're going to talk about our crazy imperialistic tendencies with Venezuela and Greenland in the third segment. And in the fourth segment, we're going to talk about our surprise, which will be the Epstein files, because it's all a surprise to everybody. But first, Patty.
Yeah.
What
I'm ready.
Is, so ICE is in Minneapolis. What is the latest in terms of, what Governor Walz has done, what Attorney General Ellison has done to try to slow down ICE?
Well, they're trying to slow them down. Here's the problem. I want to address the fact that they're both in Chicago and in Minneapolis. Judges have ruled that Bovino and his goons cannot deploy chemical weapons against protesters and individuals they're going after. They cannot use force on journalists or legal observers unless they are clearly interfering with law enforcement. We know how that goes. We know that in Chicago and in the surrounding areas, they blew right through that. And we're seeing footage today of Bovino just throwing these canisters, like kind of taunting people who aren't anywhere near him, clearly not interfering with the work that they're doing, just launching it into a crowd of people. And it's just like this green gas that can cause respiratory problems. And I also, the chief of police, Chief Burley from one of the areas near Minneapolis had a press conference yesterday. He said that his off-duty police officers are being not just pulled over because they're brown, essentially, but one of their officers was boxed in. They approached her car with their weapons drawn when she tried to take a video of the instance of the interaction. They knocked her phone out. They're treating their off-duty police officers like they're criminals as well because they happen to be brown. When we were told, but we're being specific, we're going after criminals, and clearly they're going after off-duty police officers. We know that Governor Walz and Mayor Frey and Attorney General Ellison are under investigation for, I guess, essentially they're accusing them of what Trump actually did on January 6th. They're accusing them of inciting violence against ICE officers who are going into communities and causing more violence that wasn't there prior to their chaos that they brought. Did you ask me a question? Sorry.
Yeah, no. Thank
angry.
you for getting us up to date. So, what I just don't understand, and what I need to read in the news, or need to talk to folks on the ground in Minneapolis or the Twin Cities, is that if they're continuing to break all these laws, what is the next step? What is the pushback? Because if a federal judge in Minnesota has said they can't do these things and they're continuing to do them, what is the pushback? I'm going to follow it up with Ben. To me, we've got activists taking video of people breaking these laws. We have people called legal observers who are just activists who are there who know the law a little bit better. Why are we relying on volunteers or activists when, if ICE is breaking the law, shouldn't we be relying on state law enforcement or Minneapolis police officials? And shouldn't we be relying on Minnesota's Department of Justice to be doing the jobs that seemingly these activists are doing?
Yeah, fundamentally, Kirk, I think what you're seeing is the people who've been put in charge to stop this kind of stuff are scared. And if you're looking for a synonym for scared, it's Democrats. Sorry, I almost made it a full sentence. What we need to focus on right here, and Patty kind of predicted where I was going to head with this. We saw a plainclothes police officer get accosted by ICE agents. They smacked the phone out of her hand. Only at that moment did she decide to identify herself as a police officer. And you know what happened? They immediately turned around. They didn't apologize. They didn't act contrite. They didn't act like they made a mistake. But you know what they did? They tucked tail and they ran, because somebody with actual authority, real police, scared away the fake police. And if our government officials had the guts, the intestinal fortitude to put them in a position to do something, they do not have the guts to stand up to these guys. But they won't do it because, in my opinion, they are afraid that it's going to incite some kind of civil war. And that kind of gives the whole game away at the end of the day. It seems like something that should be done, even in plain clothes. They are scared to take these people on. I equated it to when a cult leader is met by somebody who is sure of themselves. Cult leaders thrive when you find somebody who's insecure, scared, confused about where life is headed. The second you come across a doctor or somebody that is doing something in society, you all of a sudden can make that cult leader look very stupid. That's what ICE is. They are fake police. And the second anybody with real authority, if ICE had any capacity to do something impressive, they'd be police. The reason they're ICE is because they can't make it as police. So the reason why you're not seeing people actually do the things they need to do is because I think it would be too effective, like, honest to God. And then it would be a matter of pushback from there. And I think a lot of the higher ups are scared of what that would look like.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Did you see Stephen Miller's tweet about how local law enforcement needs to surrender because the ICE agents are the only ones that are enforcing the law? And by the way, law enforcement, they are not law enforcement. They have a singular mission, which is immigration. They are not trained the same way as law enforcement, as our municipal police departments. They don't have public safety training, as we saw with Renee Good, because they should have rendered aid. But let's not go on the whole other.
Wait, so I saw a video of, like, I think it might have been in New York City, because I think New York City cops are a little bit more bold, potentially, just like the doctor analogy you were giving, Ben. I think I saw New York City cops actually arresting ICE agents because they've been just harassing brown cops in New York City.
You're not seeing the mass deployment in New York, because they know they're lucky it's just arrests. Like, honest to God, New York's a little grittier than what's going on in Minnesota. No offense to our Minnesota listeners. You're very nice people. I'm from the East Coast, and like barely the East Coast. It's a different attitude where I was raised than it is in the Midwest. That's for sure.
I kind of thought this might be the problem. Those are fantasy videos. There's a lot of AI videos going around of New York police officers arresting ICE agents. And I just Googled it, and it says videos of NYPD officers arresting ICE agents are not real.
I was going to say, I didn't think they deployed in New York for that exact reason. And it turns out that that's the case. It's the same. I said it to you in our one-on-one, Kirk. It's the reason you don't see them in LA. It's the reason you don't see them in New York, is because the city's too big and there's too many cops.
Before we go to the next segment, I wanted to also we're talking about what is happening in Minnesota specifically, because it's ground zero for ICE terrorism. I just signed on to this yesterday. I heard about it 2 days ago, but labor groups in the Twin Cities particularly, but throughout Minnesota are leading the charge here. But they're not calling it a general strike because I think that's not what they want people to know it as. But they're asking everybody not to go to work. They're asking students to not go to school. And they're asking people to not buy anything this Friday, September 23rd. I believe January 23rd. And so I heard about it for 2 days. I'm like, no way. Because we've been talking about, the Minocqua Brewing Company and this podcast, we've been talking about general strikes for a year now, because this is if you can't have free and fair elections, the only other way to have regime change that's not violent is to have a general strike or a boycott. And so they're doing a stress test. This is called a stress test, where you do 1 day and you see if you all can organize and do it. And if you can, then you scare the bejesus out of the federal government, and you scare the bejesus out of the businesses like Target that are letting ICE stage their raids in their parking lot, letting ICE come in and take away their employees. Patty, what have you heard about this?
I've heard people, try to get some momentum behind this. And I know we've talked about it for a long time, and people want to know what they can do. And yet I think that there's still sort of this, it doesn't seem more, there was supposed to be a walkout yesterday. People were supposed to walk out of their businesses at 2:00, I believe, during the wherever they were. Ben, were you going to say that you've heard more energy?
I have a theory as to why you might feel that way, because I actually did a segment about it today. Mainstream media, including the leftist networks like MSNBC and CNN, are straight up not covering it, because I believe if this were to work, they are nervous that people are going to catch on to the fact that general strikes might be effective to, I don't know, increase taxes on billionaires and get Medicare for all. So they're nervous that if this happens with ICE, they are not giving it the coverage it deserves. Here's a fun fact. New York City already committed to joining Minneapolis. Who here knew that even happened? Exactly. Nobody's covering it in the mainstream media. And this is the kind of stuff that's sliding under the radar that you would think in the opposition resistance that is Rachel Maddow and MSNBC, that this would be wall-to-wall coverage.
But if they're not sending out a press release, look, we're the biggest progressive radio station in the country. If I'm not getting a press, something we can get the word out. I want to be a place that is a call to action for people who need to know these things. I'm just saying.
I think we need to figure out our pipelines better, because I can't tell you where I found it, but I know I found it. It's out there, and I don't have sources. I don't have guests. I don't have connections. I just read, and it's out there. So it's happening, and it's being ignored.
There you go. Well, we're going to take a break here. I believe it's time to take a break. We are hanging out with our friends from the Up North podcast. It's Kirk Bankson, the fearless leader of the Minocqua Brewing Company. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. Sign up for our Substack as well. Support the work they do there. There's a great marketplace there, but also order some progressive brews. They're so good, and some great swag. Ben Cominos, host of Outside the Box on WHBY. Go to WHBY.com. Amy Thomas, also one of our fearless leaders, keeping the wheels on the tracks. Let's take a break here and come back in a moment on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 Seattle, and our friends listening in Minneapolis on KTNF AM 950. We love you. Sorry. Wish we could do more.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. 0 alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. That's thc.MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive.
which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive Beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
And we are back with our coverage with our Up North podcast. Kirk, take it away.
Okay, so in the first segment, we talked about what was going on at Ground Zero in the Twin Cities in Minnesota for ICE terrorism. And now I wanted to kind of pivot to what's going on in Wisconsin, because it's surely ICE is coming. Well, they're already here, but I believe they're going to come in mass like they've come to the Twin Cities, but Ben may disagree with me on that. And then I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the continuing resolution, which has budgetary implications for ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, so first of all, Senator Chris Larson was supposed to kind of answer a lot of these questions for us today, and he's on a bus home to Milwaukee at the moment. But so I asked Amy to do some quick research to make sure that we knew what was going on. Amy, what's happening, or what have we read in the news, at least in terms of what Governor Evers, what our legislature, what our law enforcement, what are we doing to prepare for the type of terrorism and abuse and harassment that ICE is handing out in Minnesota?
I love this. And thank you for setting me up, right? I am not a legislator. I work behind the screen, behind the cameras. But I do also work very closely with advocacy groups in both Milwaukee and in Madison, as well as across the state. I like to lurk in the signal chats just to kind of understand what's going on across the state. So I pay attention to how policies are actually playing out on the ground. So when we talk about is Wisconsin, what are we doing to prepare for an escalation? I would say not much, at least not publicly or proactively. And I think that's the key word, right? And Ben, I feel like you'll know a lot about this because we often talk about that with Democrats, right? Like they're not very proactive about things. They'll come in and try. Yep, right. Okay. So we've seen statements acknowledging what's happened in Wisconsin, but there's no coordinated legislative response, no emergency guidance to local governments, and no move to pause or reassess ICE cooperation agreements. I did read an article earlier that Governor Evers says that he is absolutely preparing for the possibility of increased ICE activity in Wisconsin. But so far, people haven't seen what that preparation actually looks like in practice. So there's no plan, no guidance to local governments, and no visible effort to rein in cooperation. So much of the work that we're seeing and hearing about right now to protect community members is being done by non-electeds and community members themselves.
So let me stop you there. I want to talk about counties in a second. So I spoke, we had another Substack live with Chris last Thursday, I believe. And I asked him the same question and about Evers. I was like, you have to tell me. I mean, he's a senator. He's a state senator. He's one of the most senior Democrats in Wisconsin. He's been in office for over a decade. And he said, first, I was like, you got to tell me that he's talking to the state senators, at least the Democrats and the assembly folks, about what he's doing. And he's like, no, we haven't heard a word from Governor Evers. And I was like, okay, well, maybe he's not going to include you guys, but don't you think he's on the phone with Governor Walz every day, Governor Pritzker every day? I mean, these guys are going through it. There should be a Midwest coalition of at least blue state governors that are talking. And he's like, if he is, he hasn't said a peep about it publicly. So I know that Evers is out in a year, and so and he's going around taking. I see his Facebook posts, and he's going around to ice cream shops and licking ice cream cones and shaking hands with local businesses while the country is, while Pritzker is, basically in like armor, and when Waltz is, just getting railroaded. I mean, like, we're right in the middle of the two, and this guy's licking ice cream cones. So I don't think Evers has really got it on his. He's like letting the next governor elect handle this problem, which I think is pathetic.
It is.
Amy,
well, plus,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Go for it. Go for it,
plus,
Patty.
there's a memo that's been released that basically immigration officers are asserting sweeping powers to enter homes without judges' warrants now. I think I saw this news today as well, which we've seen play out in Minneapolis, where they're just busting down doors without a warrant and dragging people out of their homes in their underwear. So I just wanted to. And so if Governor Evers isn't getting ahead of that, or Governor Pritzker for that matter, we are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I'm nervous we're headed towards an eventuality that Democrats always think acting like Republican light will win over Republican voters. And I'm nervous in an election year that you're going to see some of the more centrist candidates run on the idea of finding a way to cooperate with ICE. They will not win a single Republican vote by doing that, but they sure as hell will lose a lot of leftist votes by doing that. And I hope that's not the route we learned in 24. That's not the route to take. I hope they learn from that lesson, but I am kind of nervous that you guys are right. It does seem like Evers is passing the buck, but that's what primaries are for. So I think we should all keep that in mind while we're voting this time around.
For sure. Quickly, Amy, tell us the counties in Wisconsin that have agreements. The sheriff's departments and are working with ICE to to help them detain folks who get arrested and sent to jails in counties.
For sure. So that's 287G. And essentially what that means is it allows local jails to function as an extension of federal immigration enforcement. So when folks are arrested there, they can be flagged, they can be held longer, and then they can be transferred straight to ICE custody. So there were conflicting reports that I found online. I found an article that said there was 19, and then the ACLU had 16. But what I've got is Brown County, Calumet. Oh, please, I am a transplant in Wisconsin, so if I slaughter any of these, jump in and save me. Fond du Lac, Kenosha, Kewaunee.
Nailed it.
Two. All right. Manitowoc, Marathon, Marquette, Outagamie, Sauk, Sheboygan, Washington, Waukesha, Waupaca, Waushara. Did I say that one right?
Waushara.
Thank you.
Winnebago
and Wood. So they're growing quickly.
So if you are listening to this podcast and from any of the counties that Amy just listed off, sheriffs get elected too. And these guys obviously have chosen, to be MAGA and to help terrorize fellow Americans at this point if they're working with ICE, not just immigrants. And so you need to be calling your sheriff and saying, why are you working with ICE after they've shot and murdered people in Minnesota? We're going to continue this conversation in the next segment, but I wanted to pivot a little bit to what's going on at the national level. So we, at the end of January, we remember, and I'll probably introduce the whole thing and we'll talk about it, but at the end of January, or at the end, less than like 48 days ago, I believe, less than 2 months ago, our government was shut down. And it was shut down because we have a 60 votes in the Senate is what it takes, is the leverage that we have to shut down government unless we want Trump to change. And so we tried to aim for Medicaid, the extension of the ACA benefits, and we caved. But now we're facing that same thing again in like next week. And so Democrats have a ton of leverage right now to stop ICE by not funding them.
I think they're going to fund. I think they're going to fund it. I think that
What would they run on?
They're what they're saying on reform. They're, if we could just give them a little bit of, guidance, if they just had, a better idea of what their jobs actually are, is what it seems like. If we just gave, I'm with you. I don't know that this is fixable when it comes to ICE. Yeah, go ahead.
So let me update. We have about 30 seconds. There's a bit of this. There's confusion, and I was confused up until about 4 hours ago. When they passed the big, beautiful bill, they put in a provision that funds ICE no matter what.
Yep.
$75 billion is going to fund. So even if we shut down the government, ICE still gets funded. And unbelievably, we didn't know that when the big, beautiful bill was coming out. But at the same time, ICE wasn't shooting people at the time. So maybe that was what came across. So I think we should go to a break, but I want to keep on talking about this after the break, because there's a few things that we all can do to try to get the government to stop funding ICE.
We are broadcasting the Up North podcast. Amy Thomas, who keeps the wheels on the track when it comes to all the work we do with Minocqua Brewing Company. Make sure you're subscribing to the Minocqua Brewing Company Substack, and please be a paid subscriber so we can continue to share the information that we talk about here. Of course, our fearless leader, of course, Kirk Bangstead. He has been a sponsor of the show since 2022, and we're grateful for all the work that he does. Ben Cominos, the host of Outside the Box on WHBY. Go to WHBY.com. We're broadcasting here on WCPT, KKNW, and KTNF. Be back in a minute, everybody.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. Zero alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. That's thc.minocquabrewingcompany.com. The Minocqua Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MinocquaMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
They're not even law enforcement. Oh, here we are. We have the Up North podcast. Take it away, Kirk Bangstead.
All right. Thanks, Patty. All right. So we're going to continue the conversation we were having right before break. So there's no doubt that we are going, ICE is going to get funded to $75 billion throughout, Trump's regime. That's why I was talking to Ben, I think yesterday, and we were so mad that Senator Cory Booker said, why don't we just buy ICE, some TV cameras that they can put on their body cameras, and why don't we just give them more money to rein them in? I kind of understand a little bit. Listen, I still think it's ridiculous, but I understand the political conundrum these guys are in, because in order to rein in ICE now, because you can't take away their $75 billion, you can appropriate more money to them to try to and make sure that money goes to rein them in. I get that. But I also think that the agriculture bill hasn't been passed, which gives us SNAP benefits. The transportation bill is on a continuing resolution, which gives us air traffic controllers, and the Department of Homeland Security gives us not only ICE, which is but it gives us the guys at the airport, whoever those guys stopping us, take our shoes off, and they give us the Coast Guard and everything. We can still have leverage to stop government. Patty, what do you think?
I just think that, look, we just talked about how in the big, beautiful bill, we're learning that there's $74 billion over 4 years from that reconciliation bill. And it's a 300% increase. So you're telling me that what Booker said is that if we just buy them camera, which, by the way, courts have been saying they have to wear their cameras, but they're not, because we saw Agent Jonathan Ross walk around with a cell phone and then switch hands so he could get his gun. That's neither here nor there. But so 265% of it goes to detention, right? It goes to basically paying for holding them in places where a lot of the detainees even have to work to have access to a phone. Like the amount of money they're spending is going to private, basically detention center owners. I can't, I know I'm supposed to be reading something else, but I just got really mad about that part. So it does guarantee, the amount of spending is absolutely insane. And when you talk about how we need to be taking care of the people in our communities, it's appalling that we're doing it this way by actually victimizing all of them.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity here if we focus on just actually shutting down. I mean, It's the kind of frustration. And Patty, I spoke to you 2 weeks ago. You caught me right after the Renee Good murder, and it's probably the most most emotional I've ever been on airwaves. I'm an emotional guy, but I try to keep it calm for the purposes of what we do professionally. And it was just impossible for me to see it through any other kind of light. And I think there is an intrinsic benefit to shutting down. And it is a matter of, do they have, as I stated in the first half hour, does the Democratic Party have the intestinal fortitude to go and do that? Because that's the major issue. I will not make excuses for Cory Booker. And while I'm not making excuses, I watched ICE funding increase for 4 years under Joe Biden and all the years under Obama as well. There comes a time when we need to realize that placating this kind of stuff is not going to make it go away. You get laughed at as soon as you turn around when you're doing this kind of stuff. It's a hard sell. It really is, because we as leftists and liberals and centrists, we always come down on the conservative party, for Republicans, for MAGA, for shutting down the government, for whatever ridiculous welfare program they want to cancel that particular budget session. And it's a hard sell, I think, to some individuals. But I think the pros outweigh the cons on this one. Not even 30% of America is behind what's going on with ICE. And if you make it clear, we're not reopening until the Gestapo stops acting like a Gestapo, there will be some frustration. It will be spun to look bad in the media. But I think anybody paying attention to what happens will know that this is something. We can't deal with this till November, let alone 2028. And I think that's a very commonplace attitude. And we didn't get a chance to jump into it, but I believe that's why we won't see this in purple states, in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, because it's not popular. But to people in Patty's city, in Minneapolis, you guys are going to have to deal with this. And it's easy for me in Northeast Wisconsin, where, according to Amy, every single bleeping sheriff is throwing in the lot with ICE. It's easy for me to say, oh, deal with this for 8 more months. But I think anybody with empathy knows we got to shut it down and stop this garbage.
So there's different contingents. Amy looked at this and she got me this information. The progressive contingent, in which Mark Pocan, who's a congressman from Madison, he's part of the progressive contingent. His quote says, "I don't think there's any way you're going to see a Homeland Security appropriations budget get through Congress. I mean, the divide is too strong." He told that to CNN. So there's going to be Congress people, but Tammy Baldwin, who's always behind the scenes. She's not a bomb thrower. She she doesn't want to increase the budget. She's talking about whether or not we should increase the budget, like Booker's talking about. But we need Tammy more than we need Pocan, because Tammy needs to be part of the 60 votes that stops the funding for government, and we're not seeing that coming out of Tammy Baldwin right now. So the call to action here, and we'll say it again at the end of the show, is everyone needs to be calling their Democratic senators and Congress people and telling them that we can't fund government until ICE stops shooting us. And it's not, and I've talked to my advisor today, one of the consultants that everybody hates, but he also knows the pulse. He's like, all of these corporate Democrats have such faith that we're going to have elections next year, have such faith that they're not willing to do anything that's going to rock the boat. They're just going to wait until the elections come out. And I think, and I've said that for a year, that's crazy. So
I think the safer bet's in the House, personally, Kirk, because I do not respect libertarians. I have a joke on my show. I say libertarians are house cats. They act like they don't need you until they realize they haven't eaten in a couple hours. They're like, hey, aren't you going to give me food or something, or like shelter? They're not actually libertarians, but there are some people, that your Thomas Massey's, who has been pretty vocal about what's going on, handful of others that recognize government overreach when it's happening, and you only need a simple majority in the House to prevent anything from getting across the finish line. And based on deaths and retiring, I believe, am I mistaken? Are we at literally a 1 vote margin of error in the House right now? I believe that's accurate. So if one Republican slides over and says, yeah, ICE is overstepping, then it gets shut down. I think the smart play, you're not finding freaking 10 Republican senators to be like, no, make it easier for Mexicans to be here. That's not a thing that's going to happen, even if Tammy Baldwin comes along for the ride. But the House, very different story. I think that's the smart play there.
Okay, let's quick move to Greenland. So obviously everybody is in Davos right now. You have, all the European leaders. You have Canada's leader, what's his name? Mark Carney. You have
Paris.
Macron is in France, and they're all just reaming the United States out for this crazy stuff. The letters that Trump has written about, to Norway about, taking over Greenland because you didn't give me the Peace Prize. We have all read that. We've heard it. I'm not going to report it. I do want to talk about a couple quotes that Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, said, and then I want to open it up to you, Ben and Patty. So Carney, when he gave a speech, said, "It seems that every day we are reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading." And then he said, "Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risk of extreme global integration, the end of pleasant fiction, and the dawn of a harsh reality of geopolitics in which the great powers are unconstrained, including Russia, China, and, of course, the U.S. Macron's statement said that we refuse to deal with the brutality of these types of politics. They're going against... we have lost, the relationships that we have worked for 50 years to build seem to be disappearing in front of us, vanishing in front of us. Patty, what do you think about a United States reputation globally?
Well, I mean, I know that. So we talked to a reporter in Copenhagen, and like everybody is appalled, right? The fact that he's saying these wild things that we look at, and they already had sort of this idea of Americans being loud and obnoxious and possibly dumb, but to have a leader, and what he did say was that they are recognizing that it's him, that he is he's gone off the rails, and that and they feel bad for us, which I guess is good. But when you have Canada and France publicly condemning American behavior at an international economic forum, that's allies basically preparing for a post-American world order, right? And that's, building alliances with just going around us is surreal that we would find ourselves in this situation. And look, that we had this leadership for decades, but they're watching us spend $170 billion on immigration enforcement, which eclipses is all of our police enforcement. And, we had the moral high ground for all of our flaws, for all the reputation that we had for being loud, dumb Americans. But we could credibly call out before like human rights abuses, right? Support democratic movements and build international coalitions. And that is no longer the case. And I don't know how long it's going to take us to rebuild our relationships.
Okay, Patty, I was gonna ask, there's a really nice follow-up to this, and it's called Sell America, which is a theme that's kind of going through Europe and dumping U.S. treasuries to rein us in. And we're going to talk about that after the break.
Scary.
Lead us out and make sure that you tell everybody about who we're listening to here.
We are listening to the Up North podcast here on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal, KKNW 1150 in Seattle, and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis. We love you. With Ben Cominos from WHBY, Outside the Box. Kirk Bankstead, Minocqua Brewing Company. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and be a paid subscriber on Substack. And Amy Thomas, who keeps everything trucking along. More after this on WCPT 820.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of progressive beer. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy progressive beer, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MinocquaBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
It's 833.
Believe it or not,
244.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
And we are back with the Up North podcast. We had to do our station ID, everybody. So thank you for your patience through the pause. Kirk Bankstead, take it away.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about, we're just destroying our reputation. We're destroying the trust that the United States has made around the globe. We have no moral high ground anymore. People are linking Trump and us to Russia, Putin's Russia, and North Korea type states. There's been talk in Davos. And it's been reported, I think Amy gave me a Guardian article, that Europe is considering taking action against the United States, economic action. And if you think that foreign policy doesn't affect your pocketbook, this is where it does. So there's a thing called Sell America, which I believe that potentially, other than China, Europe in general might hold the most U.S. Bonds or U.S. securities, globally that exist. And if Europe sells them all, or if they sell their securities, it'll create a glut, and it will potentially have downward pressure on the U.S. dollar, which could cause a whole host of problems. Ben, what are some of those problems?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation to have here. I mean, obviously, America having the largest GDP that's out there in the world, I believe around 30 trillion. The entire EU combined is around 20 trillion. Just for some reference here, Russia's at 2.5 trillion. So to give you an idea there, it's a matter of how greedy versus how scared the EU finds himself in this particular moment. Because economically, you will not be able to find somebody that compares to what America, at least the corporations, can generate economically. So you got to consider that when you're having this conversation about whether or not they're actually willing to leave. Were they to actually do so, though, there's a number of different, and I'm not going to claim to be an economic expert when it comes to how bonds and certain tariffs and other things like that work overseas. But what I do know is the partnerships that we have in terms of imports and exports, as well as a number of different business deals and sweetheart deals, which have been dangled in front of us periodically over the course of the last couple of days during this Greenland debacle. While we might not always feel the benefit of it, and we know there's a large percentage of the population that thinks we get the raw end of the deal, it really is what provides us a lot of the backing and the safety guarantees that I think a lot of us have taken for granted over the years, based on our NATO partnership and the safety that we have with Europe. But I would be remiss if I didn't at least highlight, I read this quote on my show today. This is from a French woman from the 40s, Amy César, and I think it kind of highlights there's a level of frustration because I hear us talking about Russia and North Korea. I would argue who America reminds me of right now in regards to Greenland is Israel and what they were doing to Gaza. And our European allies were very content to support us supporting Israel. And the line always is fascism is just imperialism turned inward. And what Europe is experiencing right now is what America does to everybody. I do not subscribe to this Pollyannish idea that we were the world's good guys. I think what Europe is realizing right now is what we and Europe, by extension, have done to the entire global South since before any of us were born. And there's a quote from Nazi Germany that I think really highlights the parallels between now and Nazi Germany continue to pile up. What the European bourgeois cannot forgive Hitler for is not the crime itself. It's not the crime against man. It's not the humiliation of man as such. It is the crime against the white man, the humiliation of the white man, and the fact that he applied to Europe colonialist procedures when until then had been reserved exclusively for the Arabs of Algeria, the coolies of India, and the blacks of Africa. And what we're watching right now are the white countries of Europe realize that they, for the first time ever, cannot trust the man in the White House, and they are pivoting. They are willing to work with China instead of us because of this. Yep. And if we don't acknowledge that and acknowledge that this is what we do all over the place, not just Greenland, it just feels stranger because it's Greenland. We've been here before, and we need to call this kind of stuff out when it happens.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's interesting that you say that because I had someone comment on my Facebook post. I'm getting a lot of people from like all over the world, and I had someone from another country say that they were hoping that Trump would win so it would expose the kind of actions that we take and the behavior that we've been participating in for decades. So that was...
Yeah, I agree.
Anyway.
So the question is,
Yeah, go ahead.
So the question is, we just invaded Venezuela. We're talking about invading Greenland. Mm-hmm. ICE is descending on different cities. There's a backdrop here that, I don't think you can say any of these things are just meant to distract us because they're so horrible in and of themselves. But we still are waiting for the Epstein files.
Yep.
And we haven't talked about them for a month, and they were supposed to have been given to us a month ago by law, passed both by Republicans and Democrats, and they haven't. Patty, what is happening with the Epstein files? So
in a lovely bipartisan duo, Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie had filed a lawsuit to request a court-appointed special master to oversee the Epstein release. They just did that on January 8th, because only 1% of the documents have been released since the official date that they were supposed to be turned over, which was December 19th. A federal judge today shot down that request, saying it wasn't done properly, but they could file again. So it is a matter of, the wheels of justice moving very slowly. slowly. I guess you have to do it the right way, which whatever. But at least one survivor, and I heard that there were at least two survivors had come forward. Now they had wanted to do the Ro Khanna and Massey were doing this in a way they were hoping to protect survivors rather than having this huge dump. So there's at least one survivor who has formally asked a federal court to intervene, and the courts do take survivors seriously in these instances. So look, the government moving slow versus doing it right is painful sometimes, but the boring, the procedural stuff, getting the filing correct and listening to survivors is the right way forward.
You know what's interesting? Oh, sorry, Kirk.
No, Ben.
You know what's interesting about that, Patty? Because you're exactly right. We didn't start talking about Epstein until 7 minutes left in an hour, which goes to show you how much other garbage is piling up. And I hate to boil it down to politics. The Epstein list polls at -38. I can't believe it's not 100, but welcome to polarization in America. It polls at -38 in terms of approval. Greenland, which we all view, I think, collectively as a distraction, is polling at -40. It is less popular than the Epstein list in terms of how it works from a political perspective. And it goes to show you that, yeah, we are getting distracted by all this kind of garbage, but it's like out of the frying pan and into the fire, right? I mean, fundamentally, that's what the Trump regime's looking at. And we're talking about sexual abuse survivors, so I don't want to boil it down just to politics, but this is a political podcast where we talk politics, and it's bad politics to distract with something dumber than the actual story itself.
So I guess, I was just going to rail on spineless Democrats again, but what Massey and Ro Khanna wanted seems reasonable. You have a special master, that's not part of the Republican Party, and that's not part of the Democrat, probably not part of the Department of Justice because they're getting sued. You have this person who's in charge of releasing the files, and they have to do it, in a certain amount of time. And that seems like the right way to do it. You have to take it out of the Department of Justice's hands. If they actually get a special master or somebody independent doing this, then it'll be done in a proper way, and then we can actually focus on it. I still don't understand, however, why the original judge, why does it have to be a month? Why does a judge have to hear something from Ro Khanna or Thomas Massey, a new proposal? The law was written, they passed the law. I've been sued a lot. I know contempt of court quite a bit. They're just in contempt right now. Like, it seems to me like they should be able to have a split that switches to throw somebody in jail for not giving the files away.
Yeah, you would think. You know what? Go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to parrot what you were saying there. And I think it's all a matter of verbiage. Like, I would even suggest I've stopped referring to them as the elites and I've started referring to them as the Epstein class. Just the entire group of people until they're willing to actually play ball with what's going on. Because fundamentally, we already knew with the 90 whatever trials against Trump that none of them actually came to fruition. Where if any one of us committed one of those crimes, especially you, Kirk, you'd be in jail right now. And he just kind of skated away with it here. I don't want to be a pessimist, but I feel like these guys are going to drag this out for the foreseeable future. Sure. Or, as I've been predicting, it'll be the "Oops, all Dems" edition of the Epstein list, which is just as useless as not getting them at all.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of comments from my lovely haters that it's just gonna be all all Democrats in it anyway. It's all Clinton and now Biden's in it. Apparently, that's the
please
the bots don't know any better. I know.
You noticed that Biden and Obama.
Yes, Obama's
I got
in there
plenty
now too.
of problems with them. I got plenty of problems with them. Nowhere near the Epstein list.
Yeah, nowhere near.
Something.
All right, we don't have much time left. I wanted to list a few action items for everybody who have made it to through the show so far. First of all, if you're in Minnesota, join that whatever they're calling it. I'm calling it a general strike on this Friday, January 23rd. It is called it's a stress test. If you can do it and do it coordinated enough, it will encourage others to do it. We need to grow the movement of general strikes and the people that think that they're possible. Second, boycott the companies like Target who are housing ICE. We are doing a crowdfunder for the Minocqua Marketplace, which is an e-commerce site meant to make it easier for you to boycott companies, because we want to put everything on that site as a substitute, so that you can, and that's an affordable substitute for every product that is made by a company who is bent the knee to Trump. And finally, call your Pocan and call Tammy Baldwin, call your Democratic senators and make them defund the federal government.
That's the Up North podcast with Kirk Bangstad, Amy Thomas, and Ben Cominos. Thank you, Lady B. Good night, everybody. Have a great evening.